Before this story starts, I want to ask you something. Think about someone you have cared about for a very long time. Not the person who made the most noise in your life. Not the one who always had something to say. The quiet one. The one whose name sits somewhere deep in your chest like a stone you carry so often you forget it's there. Now I want you to ask yourself one question. If that person had spent 12 years making your life easier, fixing problems before you even knew they existed, keeping danger away from your door, doing all of it without ever asking for a single thing back, would you call that love? Or would you call it something else? Ha-Eun spent 3 days asking herself that exact question. He turned it over and over. She looked at it from every direction a person can look at something. Every time she thought she had an answer, it changed into something new. And then she opened the folder. After that, the question changed completely. Stay with me. Because what happens in the next 30 minutes is not a love story ending. It is a love story, after 12 years of waiting, finally deciding to begin. It arrives on a Wednesday morning. No knock on the door. No delivery person. No note saying it was coming. Just a black envelope on the floor of her apartment, slipped under the door sometime during the night. That is how things in Jae-won's world always arrive. Quietly. Without witnesses. As if the normal rules about how things get from one place to another simply do not apply to him. The envelope is thick. Heavy. The kind of weight that tells you, before you even open it, that whatever is inside did not get collected in a day or a week. This took years. Ha-Eun picks it up from the floor. She is still in her socks. She has been awake since 5 in the morning, which has been happening a lot this week. Not because she can't sleep. Because every morning she wakes up and for about 3 seconds everything feels normal. And then the full weight of everything she now knows comes back and sits on her chest like something too heavy to move. She carries the envelope to the kitchen table. He puts it down in front of her and looks at it. She doesn't open it right away. Some people would have torn it open the second they picked it up. Ha-Eun is not that kind of person. She has learned, from years of sitting with people who are going through terrible and complicated things, that some moments deserve a breath before you walk into them. A few seconds where you sit with the last version of yourself that doesn't know what's inside. Because once you know something, you can never go back to not knowing it. She opens the envelope. Inside is a folder. Black cover. No name on it. No label. Inside the folder are pages. A lot of them, printed in neat small writing. Every page has a date at the top. The dates go back 12 years. They are organized in order from the oldest to the most recent, like a very careful diary kept by someone who treated her life like the most important project they had ever worked on. The first entry is from March 2013. She was 26 years old then. It reads, medical bills settled in full. Her brother is recovering. She did not sleep until the surgeon told her he was going to be okay. She did not cry until she was alone in the corridor. Ha-Eun reads that last sentence 3 times. She did not cry until she was alone in the corridor. He saw that. He was there somewhere and he watched her wait until she thought no one could see her, and then he wrote it down. Not like someone keeping records on a target. Not cold. Not clinical. With the kind of attention that only comes from someone for whom that moment mattered so much they could not let it disappear. She turns the page. I'm going to take you through what is in this folder. Not every single entry. The ones that matter. The ones that made Ha-Eun sit back in her chair and have to remind herself to breathe. There was a man in her apartment building. 3rd floor. He had been leaving notes under her door. Notes that started out rude and got scarier over 6 weeks. Ha-Eun had been doing everything right. Documenting everything. Talking to the building manager. Taking the right steps. The entry in the folder says, she is handling it correctly. She is not sleeping well. The building manager is moving too slowly. Problem dealt with at the source. He will never know the neighbor left on his own. Ha-Eun stops reading. She remembers this. She remembers waking up one morning and the building manager telling her the neighbor had packed up and left overnight. She remembered the relief. The way she had breathed for the first time in weeks. She had told herself she got lucky. That sometimes people just decide to leave. She turns the page. A scholarship. The entry is short. Her application was strong. The committee was going to say no. I redirected the outcome. She puts the folder down. He gets up from the table. She walks to her window. She stands there and does something she does when her brain needs more space than the room is giving her. She breathes slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The same thing she tells her clients to do when a session gets too heavy. Then she sits back down. This entry is longer than the others. Ji-hoon's second surgery. There was a serious complication. The best heart surgeon at the hospital was away at a conference in Japan. A surgeon from a hospital in Tokyo was available. Private transport arranged. All costs covered through a charity account. The charity has no other patients. She was in the waiting room for 6 hours. She did not call anyone to sit with her. I did not go inside. Ha-Eun reads the last line again. I did not go inside. He was there. Right outside. 6 hours. While she sat alone in the same waiting room where they had first been in the same space. 6 years later, same chairs, same lights, same feeling of a night that goes on too long, and he was standing outside. Not going in. He had already done the thing that needed doing. And then he stood outside in the dark for 6 hours because he had decided that going inside was something he was not allowed to do. Ha-Eun presses her hand flat on the table. She keeps turning pages. She is moving faster now. Looking for something. She does not know exactly what she is looking for, but she knows it is in here somewhere. That her hands will find it before her brain names it. She finds it near the back of the folder. It is different from everything else. Every other entry is neat. Organized. Date, situation, action, result. Clean and controlled, like a report written by someone who keeps their feelings in a locked room. This one is not like that. The date is November 2021. No other details. And what follows is not a report. It is a paragraph that looks like it was written by someone at the end of a long night when the locked room opened by itself. It says, "She laughed today outside the hospital. I was 3 blocks away. I couldn't hear it from where I was standing. But I could see it. I have been careful for 8 years about what I let myself notice about her. But I am writing this down because I do not know where else to put it. She laughed, and for a second the whole street looked different, and all I could think was, good. Whatever made her laugh, good. I want her to have more of it. I want her to have so much of it that she never runs out. That is the whole of it. That has always been the whole of it. I don't know what to do with that. So I am writing it here and closing the folder." Ha-Eun does not turn the page for a long time. She sits at her kitchen table in her socks on a Wednesday morning. She reads that paragraph 4 times. On the 5th read, something inside her chest. Something that has been sitting under pressure since a Tuesday night in a restaurant when a man said his own name like it cost him something. Quietly, all at once, let's go. She doesn't cry. She doesn't feel like crying. She feels like she has been standing outside a door for a very long time and someone has finally opened it. The last entry in the folder is dated the day of the wedding. She already read it first before she went back to the beginning. He reads it again now. He was an empty man. He would have made her smaller over time. I ended it in 3 minutes. She is crying on the church steps in her wedding dress. I am the reason she is crying. I told myself for 12 years that I was keeping her safe. But today I made her cry in front of everyone she knows. This is the first time in 12 years that I cannot fix what I did. And I do not know if I have the right to try. Ha-Eun closes the folder. She sits still for a moment. Then she puts on her shoes and goes to find him. She goes to the restaurant first. The one with no sign on the door. It is 10 in the morning on a Wednesday and he is not there. The man who answers the door tells her nothing. Politely, carefully, with the practiced blankness of someone trained to be a wall. She thinks about where Jae-won goes when he is not being the version of himself that the world is allowed to see. She thinks about everything she read this morning. A man who stood outside a hospital for 6 hours. A man who was 3 blocks from a laugh he couldn't hear. A man who wrote something down in a folder because he had nowhere else to put it. She thinks about where she would go if she were him and the weight got too heavy. He goes to the hospital. Not to look for him there. To go to the place that is hers. The waiting room on the ground floor. The same one. The one with the plastic chairs and the fluorescent lights and the vending machine in the corner that has never once had the right change available. She sits down. She puts the folder in her lap. She does not text him. She does not call. She just sits and waits with the quiet patience of a woman who has spent years sitting in rooms with people and understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stay. She waits 40 minutes. He walks through the door. He stops when he sees her. Just for half a second. Something moves across his face, quick and unguarded, gone before you could name it. Then he is himself again. Controlled. Steady. He walks over and sits down in the chair beside her. Not across from her. Beside her. The same way as 12 years ago. Neither of them says this out loud. He looks at the folder on her lap. He says nothing. You sent it, she says. Yes. Why? He is quiet for a moment. Because you deserve to see all of it. Not just the parts your sister found. Not just what I told you at the restaurant. Everything. The November entry, she says. He does not ask which one. He knows. You wrote it down because you didn't know where else to put it, she says. He is still. She watches him decide, and it is a real decision. She can see it happening, whether to hold the distance or set it down. Yes, he says. J1. She says his name the way she said it at the restaurant table. Not the title. Not what his men call him. Just his name returned to what it is. I am not here to tell you that everything you did was right. Some of it wasn't. The wedding. I know. Let me finish. Pause. He goes still. Some of it was wrong and we are going to have to talk about that honestly. I am not skipping past it. She looks at him. But I read 12 years of your writing this morning. And I know what it is. I think you have spent so long telling yourself what you are not allowed to want that you actually forgot you are allowed to say the word. He looks at her. Say it, she says. Not as a test. Not with any sharpness. The way she speaks to people in her work when they have been holding something alone for too long and they just need someone to tell them it is safe to put it down. The waiting room is quiet around them. Somewhere down the hall a phone rings and gets answered. The lights buzz faintly the way they always have. I love you, Jaewon says. Simply. Quietly. In the same plain voice he uses for every true thing. And it lands in the room the way true things land after 12 years of being held. Not with a crash or an explosion. With the sound of something very heavy being placed carefully on solid ground. Ha-Eun breathes. And then his phone rings. He looks at the screen. Something shifts in his face. Not fear. The opposite. A sharp, flat focus. The look of a man who recognizes a specific kind of problem and has recognized it many times before. I have to take this, he says. Take it, she says. He does. And what happens in the next 45 seconds is the moment Ha-Eun stops thinking about Jaewon as someone from a complicated past, and starts understanding that his present is about to walk through the door. The call is short. He says 4 words the whole time. When? How many? Understood. Yes. He hangs up. He looks at her with the expression of a man who has been worried about a specific moment arriving for a long time and has just been told that moment is now. The Sierrak group, he says. They have been following the donation trail. They found the hospital. They know you exist. He pauses. There are 2 men in the car park outside. They are not here to talk. Ha-Eun does not panic. She has sat with enough people in crisis to know that panic is not automatic. It is a choice and you can choose something else. She looks at him clearly. What do you need to do, she says. He takes out his phone. Makes 1 call. Does not raise his voice. Does not change his expression. He says a name and a location in the same quiet tone he uses for everything, and then he stops talking and hangs up. Ha-Eun watches the window that faces the car park. 3 minutes pass. And then the black sedan, the one that had been sitting at the far end of the car park, the one with 2 men inside who had come to a hospital because a man they consider an enemy loves a woman who works there, simply pulls out. Philly. No rushing. Like it had always been planning to leave and had only just remembered. Gone. No fight. No confrontation. No threats thrown across a car park. Just a phone call and a silence and a car driving away like it was never there. The waiting room is exactly as quiet as before. That's it. Ha-Eun says. That's it. She looks at him. Will they come back? Not to you. He says it the way you state a fact about weather. There are things in place. Today was a test. They wanted to know if you were real. If you could be used against me. He pauses. Now they know you're real. And now they know what it would cost them to use you. Those 2 facts tend to end the conversation permanently. Ha-Eun sits with this. She is not a person who pretends. She has never been. She looks at things directly. Difficult things, uncomfortable things, things that most people would rather look away from. And she decides what she thinks about them honestly. It is how she was built. It is the thing her work made sharper. Is this what it looks like, she says. Feisty. This is what the edges of your life look like. Yes. A phone call and a car that leaves. Sometimes. Yes. And if you hadn't made the call in time, she says. What would it have looked like then? He is quiet. Different. I need more than that. It would have been handled, he says, by people I have in place for exactly that. With as little. I don't do things loudly. What you saw is actually what it looks like most of the time. A call. A message passed. A problem that decides it is not worth the cost. He looks at her steadily. But the problem is real. It will be real for as long as I am who I am. I cannot make it disappear. I can only make sure it never touches you. And if I am standing next to you, she says, like right now, what then? Then you are inside the circle, he says. And the circle is not nothing. I want you to understand that. It is not nothing. She nods slowly. She is not performing calm. She is actually calm, working through it the way she works through everything, methodically, honestly, without pretending anything is smaller than it is. He says, and she can hear that this cost him something. You should think about this properly. Not today. Not with the folder and the car park and all of this at once. Take real time. Think about what it actually means. I know what it means, she says. You know what today looks like. You don't know what 3 years looks like. 5 years. Do you? She says. He stops. Do you know what 5 years looks like for you? She says. He doesn't answer. Because the honest answer is no. And she already knew the answer was no. That is why she asked. Nobody knows, she says. That is not a reason to walk away. That is just what being alive feels like. He looks at her. And this is the moment. Not the folder. Not the restaurant. Not even the waiting room 12 years ago. This one. Right here in this room under these lights with a car park that has gone quiet outside the window. This is the moment where 12 years of walls either stay standing or they don't. He reaches into his jacket. He places 2 things on top of the folder in her lap. A car key. And a passport. These have been ready for 3 years, he says. She looks at him. A clean name. Money already in place. A life somewhere that has nothing to do with me or anything connected to me. He pauses. I made them because I understood 3 years ago that there might come a moment where things went wrong in a way I couldn't fix. And if that happened, I didn't want you to have to stop and think. I wanted you to be able to go. Ha-Eun looks at the passport. Looks at the key. You made me an exit, she says. 3 years ago. Without telling me. Yes. In case your world ever found mine. Yes. He picks up the passport. Opens it. Her own face looks back at her from the photo. Her real face, her real features on a name that is not hers, on a document that leads to a life with no J1 in it. She doesn't remember this photo being taken. She doesn't know when it happened. But it is her. He closes the passport. She looks at him for a long time. Then she puts the passport back on the folder. She puts the key back beside it. No, she says. He is completely still. Not because I'm not scared, she says. I am. The car park scared me. The folder scared me in a different way. I am not standing here pretending I have figured everything out. She pauses. But I spent 12 years living a life where someone was quietly removing the hard things before they could reach me. And I didn't know. I was safe. And I was completely alone. And I didn't know I was both at the same time. She looks straight at him. I don't want that anymore. Safe and alone and not knowing. I read 12 years of the most careful love I have ever seen written down, and I am not walking away from it because it has difficult edges. Something moves through Jae-won's face. Not a small thing this time. Not a half-second expression that disappears. This one stays. This one is fully visible. It is the look of a man who prepared himself for every possible outcome of this conversation and somehow did not prepare for this one. Ha-Eun. I'm not done. She picks up the folder from her lap. She holds it out to him. I want you to keep this. He looks at it. Not destroy it, she says. I know that's what you were going to offer next. I know how your mind works. Clean exit, burn the evidence, protect her from the proof of what you did. That is not what I want. He keeps holding the folder out until he takes it. I want you to keep it. Put it somewhere. Know that it exists. And I want the last entry to stay the last entry. She meets his eyes. Because that last line, I do not know if I have the right to try, that is the most honest thing in the whole folder. Everything else was true. That one was honest. And I need you to keep it. So that every time you feel like making a decision about my life without asking me, you can open that folder and read the last line and remember what it felt like to write it. He holds the folder. He nods. Good, she says. Now come with me. I want to show you something. She takes him upstairs. 3rd floor. A small room at the end of a corridor. 1 window. 2 chairs. A small table with a box of tissues on it that gets replaced every few days because of what this room is used for. This is where she works. This is the room where people sit across from Ha-Eun and tell her the things they have never told anyone else. The things they decided no one would want to hear. The things that felt too heavy or too complicated or too shameful to carry out into the open. She has sat in this room with people who had been holding their worst truths alone for 10, 15, 20 years. She has sat with them and not flinched and not hurried them and not looked away. She sits in her usual chair. She points to the one across from her. He sits. It is the first time in 12 years of orbiting her life, 12 years of watching from cars, from distances from 3 blocks away, that Jae-won Shin is in a room that belongs to Ha-Eun. In the chair her clients sit in. With the ordinary window looking onto an ordinary courtyard and the tissues on the table and the lights that are just lights. He looks around the room slowly. Like someone seeing a place they have imagined many times finally from the inside. Ha-Eun watches him look at it. This is where I spend my days, she says. People sit in that chair and tell me things they have never said out loud. Things they have been carrying for years. Things they decided a long time ago they were not allowed to say, or that no one would want to hear. She pauses. I have sat across from a lot of people who made themselves smaller to survive. Who got so good at surviving that they forgot it is not the same thing as living. Jae-won does not move. I am not your therapist, she says. I want to be clear about that. I'm not trying to fix you. You are not broken. You have never been broken. She looks at him. But I read your writing all morning. And the man who wrote I don't know what to do with that so I am putting it here and closing the folder. That man has been closing the folder for 12 years instead of saying any of it to an actual living person. She leans forward slightly. You have been alone for a very long time, Jae-won. Not the ordinary kind of lonely. The specific kind that comes from deciding once that needing people is dangerous, and then getting so good at not needing anyone that you forgot it was ever a decision. He's looking at her. Just looking. The way he looked at the camera feed in the car. The complete, total attention of a man for whom she is the only thing in the room. Where did that start, she says. Not the syndicate. Not the work. Before all of that. When did you first decide that wanting things from people was too dangerous? A long silence. He has never been in a room where someone asked him this. He has had conversations about power and money and who owes what to whom and what silence costs and what words cost. But this specific question, asked by this specific person in this specific room, after this specific morning. My father left when I was 11, he says. Fully. Like he is finding the words as he goes. My mother worked all the time after that. Not because we needed the money. Because she didn't know how to sit still in a house where someone had walked out. She kept moving so the empty space wouldn't catch up with her. He pauses. I learned it from watching her. That if you let yourself need someone, really need them, you have given them the power to take something from you when they go. So you stop needing. You build something that runs on its own. You make yourself so self-sufficient that when people leave and they always leave, it is just a fact. Not a wound. Ha-Eun listens. She does not jump in. She does not rush to the next question. She lets the words settle in the room the way words need to settle when someone has never said them before. And it worked, he says. I don't know. Like he is hearing himself say something he has never quite understood until this moment. It worked very well. For a very long time. And then one night I drove past a hospital and I saw a light on in a waiting room and I don't know why I stopped. I have never been able to explain it. I sat in the car for 20 minutes telling myself there was no reason to go in. And then I went in. And I sat down next to a woman I had never met and I didn't say anything and she fell asleep and I didn't want to move because the moment I moved it would be over. So I stayed. Because it was the only moment in years that I felt like I was actually present inside my own life. He pauses. And then I left. Because staying was not something I had given myself permission to do. Ha-Eun says quietly, you're still here. He looks at her. You went in, she says. 12 years ago you went in when every part of you said not to. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. And you are here right now, in my room in my chair answering a question I don't think you have ever answered out loud. She pauses. You have always been here, Jae-won. The folder is just 12 years of proof that you kept pretending otherwise. The room is completely quiet. He looks at her, and something that has been held for a very long time, kept carefully behind glass, maintained at a distance from everything including himself, takes one breath and puts the glass down. I don't know how to do this, he says. I want to be honest with you about that. I know how to handle everything else. I don't know how to be in someone's life without trying to manage everything around it. I will probably try to fix things I should ask you about first. I will make that mistake more than once. I will need you to tell me when I'm doing it, and I will not always receive that well at first, and I will get better at it over time. He looks at her directly. I am telling you this so you know what you are actually saying yes to. Not the car park. Not the folder. Me. The real version. Ha-Eun is quiet for a moment. Then she does something small. She reaches across the space between the two chairs and places her hand over his. Not a dramatic gesture. Not performed. Just, her hand on top of his. The way you do when someone has just said something true and difficult and you want them to feel it was received without making more of it than it is. He looks down at her hand. He looks at it the way you look at something unexpected when you have been braced against the unexpected for so long that your whole body has to work out what to do with the new information. Like every careful, controlled, self-sufficient part of him is slowly working out that it is allowed to stop now. I know what I'm saying yes to, Ha-Eun says. I read the folder. I know how you work. I know you will get it wrong sometimes. She pauses. So will I. The difference is that we are going to get it wrong in the same room. No more files. No more watching from a distance. No more making decisions about my life from a car parked around the corner. She looks at him. You want to keep me safe, you stay close enough to do it in person. You want to make a decision that affects my life. You tell me first. We figure out the difficult edges together. That is the deal. She holds his gaze. Can you do that? He doesn't answer right away. He gives the question the respect it deserves. She watches him sit with the full weight of it. What yes actually means, what it would require him to become, what it would mean to be someone who asks instead of someone who simply decides. I can try, he says. I will, yes. I can try. That is all I am asking, she says. She does not move her hand. He turns his over, slowly like a decision made in real time, like a door opening 1 inch at a time, and holds on. The lights do their usual thing. Down the hall someone's shift is ending. Outside Seoul is being Seoul. Enormous and indifferent and completely unaware that in a small room on the 3rd floor of a hospital, 2 people who have been circling each other for 12 years have finally stopped moving and sat down. There's one more thing. 2 weeks later. A regular Tuesday. Ha-Eun is at work. A session with a 17-year-old boy who is being difficult in the specific way that means he is frightened, and she is sitting with him fully the way she always does, her whole attention in the room. Her phone buzzes. She ignores it. She ignores it for the full 40 minutes she is with him. When she comes out she looks at the screen. A message from a number she now knows by heart. There is a problem with the Mapo office. I was going to handle it myself. I'm asking you first. It involves the foundation account, the one connected to the hospital donation. It will take 2 days to fix through the proper legal channels or 4 hours my way. Tell me which one you want. She reads it twice. She types back. Proper channels. 2 days is fine. 3 seconds pass. Understood. That is it. Ha-Eun puts her phone in her pocket and walks back to work. And I need you to understand why that text message matters more than the folder or the car park or anything else in this story. Because a man who spent 12 years making every decision alone, who moved landlords and surgeons and wedding guests and rival syndicates like pieces on a board that only he could see, sent a text message on a Tuesday afternoon that said I am asking you first. And a woman who spent 12 years being kept safe without knowing it typed back 2 words. Proper channels. With the quiet confidence of someone who is finally in the room. The black folder is in a desk drawer. The last entry stays the last entry. He asked her eventually why she didn't want it burned. She said, because the man who wrote I do not know if I have the right to try, that is the man I said yes to. Not the certain one. The one who wasn't sure and tried anyway. I don't want to burn the evidence of how you got here. He had nothing to say to that. He didn't need to. Here is what I want to leave you with. Jaewon Shin spent 12 years believing that love kept at a safe distance was the same as love that couldn't cause harm. He was wrong. Not because what he did wasn't love. It was. Every entry in that folder was love. It was some of the most committed, patient, consistent love this story has ever seen. But distance is not protection. Distance is just loneliness with a reason attached to it. And Ha-Eun spent 12 years being kept safe in ways she couldn't see by someone she didn't know, which meant she was never truly safe from the thing that costs the most. Going through your whole life without knowing that someone was choosing you, every single day quietly, completely without asking for anything back. What changed was not the danger. Jaewon's world did not get simpler because she said yes. The Sirak group still exists. There will be other problems. There will be other calls that need to be made and other moments where his instinct to handle everything alone will be a significant inconvenience to them both. But there are 2 chairs in a small room on the 3rd floor of a hospital and both of them have been sat in now and that changes things. There is a folder in a desk drawer with a last entry that stays last and that changes things. And somewhere in Seoul on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon a man who spent his entire life deciding he was not allowed to want things is asking a woman what she thinks before he acts. And she is answering, and they are both in the same room while it happens. That is the whole of it. That has always been the whole of it.